I have so many people that reach out to me saying they're going to start a DC fast charging business, and I love it. I love to hear it. But then sometimes they're like, well, you mostly talk about level 2 EV charging, and that doesn't really matter. But honestly, there's a reason why I talk about level 2 EV charging. DC fast charging, yeah, that's the end goal, but you have to start somewhere, right? And it's not so easy to just start a DC fast charging business. The best thing and the worst thing about an EV charging business is you can't just throw money at it. The second EV charging company that I worked for literally had unlimited amounts of money. We could do anything. If we had an idea, if there was something we wanted to do, we had the funds to do it. And it still wasn't easy. And the big reason behind this is you can't buy people's trust. And that's the tricky thing about this business is you can have a ton of money and you could be willing to cover a big portion of the cost to install everything, but if people don't know who you are, they think you're a new company, then they're going to have a little bit of hesitation to just dive into a contract with you, right? If you're actually serious about starting an EV charging business, whether it's level 2 or DC fast charging, then I have a step-by-step guide. It's really a cheat sheet on everything you need to do to get your business off the ground. And I have that for you in a course below. So check that out. And that's the best thing and the worst thing about this business. The best thing is that you can start for free. Anybody can come up with their concept, build their business, pitch their idea. You can do all that for free. You don't have to have a whole bunch of investors paying for all the installs and all the projects and all the charges and everything. You can just get the idea started, pitch the concept to people, and then if they're interested, they'll then give you a deposit and you can order and pay for what you need to. But if you have a boatload of money and you don't do the work, then you're going to be stuck in the same spot. A lot of this getting started is about doing the work, doing the groundwork. And that's why I say it's one of the best things because not everybody is willing to do the groundwork. It's not something that some rich guy in a chair can write a check and magically create an EV charging business. There's a lot of the legwork that needs to be done. So it depends who you are. If you have a bunch of money and you want to start this business, invest in this EV charging business, obviously money's going to help because you're going to be able to hire people to do the work for you, but the work still needs to be done. And what I mean by work is a lot of this is about educating people. When you speak to a host or someone that you want to install chargers on their property, 9 times out of 10, unless they drive an EV, unless you find the decision maker, they own a Tesla or they own an EV, then it's way smoother. That's prime. If you can find the decision maker that's already driving an electric car, half your battle is done. But for most common folks still today in 2025, I'd say maybe a quarter of the people will be driving an EV or at least know somebody that does. So they're kind of well-versed in, how the whole charging thing works. But a lot of actually closing your sale is teaching. You have to explain how the whole concept works. And then once people kind of have a general understanding of, okay, so we have a charger on our property, somebody that drives an EV pulls up, they plug in, they pay for the charge, and then there's profit from that and the money goes to someone. There's profit created by this. Once they kind of get the concept of, okay, this is a business where money is made, then they can see what your offer is. They can decide, okay, yeah, that is a good offer, what this company's offering, but it's not like they have a bunch of things to compare it to. So it's almost like your initial work is explaining what EV charging is and how it works. And then you can explain what your offer is and maybe tell them, how it's different from other companies. But that's what I love about this industry is you can't just snap your fingers and make it work. And I just want to back up a little bit to the companies that I helped start before. It was up to me to get these things off the ground. Both these companies strategize our go-to-market strategy, which hosts to go after, which locations to target, which chargers to order from where, which software companies to use, how our business model was going to work, what was the most profitable for the setup that we had in terms of how much the electricity costs, if we were able to get the rebates. Like a lot of this was up to me. And I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of it didn't go well at first. I had to figure everything out on my own. I had to figure out, okay, well, this business model works for this type of location, but it definitely doesn't work for this type of location. For example, if you had where I live, it's cold in the winter, it's rainy and cold where I live. And the golf courses were awesome during the summer because people would park their car and leave it there for however long they're golfing for, 6, 8 hours. I don't know. Some people are faster at golf, but it takes all day basically to finish a full 18-hole golf course, for me at least. And those people were charging their cars all day. It was great. But then the second that September, October rolls around, it's like it was just dead. So the golf course model was great, but it was very seasonal. That's where I live. Where you live, if you're in Florida or something like Texas, where it's, you can golf all year round, then golf courses are a pretty good opportunity. And then it goes into the profit side of things. And I'll loop back to DC fast charging because I do have a point that I want to make on that. But when it comes to profit sharing or revenue sharing, okay, let's just define the term revenue sharing. What does that mean? Or some people call it profit sharing. All it is when somebody pays to use the charger and there's profit that comes through the machine. Let's say they paid 30 cents to use the charger, but the electricity only costs 10 cents. Then there's that 20-cent profit per kilowatt that has to go somewhere, right? So a lot of EV charging companies, they do revenue sharing based on whoever put up most of the money for the charger will usually in turn receive most of the profit from the EV charger. But I don't like this idea. I don't think anybody should be sharing any of these profits. And it's not because I'm greedy. It's because the profits from one EV charging station are pretty low to be splitting up and sharing with, 3 or 4 different parties. You want to try to set up the deal so you can take all of those profits and then you can offer other benefits to the other parties that are involved. But whether it's you or whether it's the host, those profits should stay together. And this is why people have this perception of EV charging companies not being profitable. I went and met with a president of one of these really big EV charging companies, and I was sitting with him for 2 hours. And honestly, at the end of the 2 hours, I was so confused by how his business model worked and what his company was offering because it was so different for every type of situation. He's like, okay, well, if this happens, then we have this business model. Or if they do this, then this happens. And I was like, okay, well, I had to ask 1,000 questions to try to figure out how this whole thing was set up. It wasn't very clear and simple. And I'm such a big fan of things being simple. It wasn't clear how things were set up. It was kind of all over the place. And in almost every business model, the revenue was being split up between they got a little bit and the software company got a little bit or the host got a little bit. And it's like, why? Like, why are you doing this? If just make it very clear, like if the host pays for everything, then they get the profits, but then they pay you a monthly rate to provide the software and the maintenance, or just make sure you're getting a small amount of revenue if they paid for everything. But if you paid for everything, then you better get all of those profits. I don't know why you're giving them 30% or whatever it is, because to them, it's like 30% for a business, 30% of an EV charger for compared to how much money a business is making every year. It's not something that they're going to be, jumping out of bed in the morning super stoked about. But for us, if we have a bunch of EV chargers across the city, then yeah, definitely all those profits are going to add up big time. And also, I'd love if you were to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and please comment below if you have any thoughts or ideas about anything we've talked about. Thanks so much for checking in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.